brother was a Tuskegee airman, and she met these nurses on another base when they closed Tuskegee. So these nurses helped break the color barrier in military nursing. Keep in mind, Black nurses weren't allowed in white hospitals. So basically, the nurses could serve on bases with Black personnel or German prisoners. And the German prisoners were probably treated much better than the Blacks who were there serving their country. I'll tell you one story. Didn't happen at Tuskegee, but if you heard of Lena Horne, the singer actress,
yes,
she went to one of the Black bases because Tuskegee wasn't the only base where Black were being trained, and so she was performing right in the front row were the German prisoners. In the back were the Black officers, the Black military men. They were in the back. Okay, you see the picture, right?
yes.
German soldiers, right, they were prisoners in the front, the Black personnel in the back. What Lena Horne did, and I read this in her biography, she went to the back and performed from the back, which meant she was performing. She was performing, so the German prisoners would have had to turn around, and now they were in the back. So I always like telling that story, even though it didn't happen at Tuskegee. But yeah, that was one story I thought was really interesting. But I guess I had started to work on a documentary about the Tuskegee Army nurses, because they were in the Army Nurse Corps. When I started to tell that story, but to do the video, you have to excuse me. My husband is coming in and it's distracting me. All right, so I started writing a documentary. Started a documentary because I went around the country interviewing airmen and the nurses who were still living. And my idea was to work on the documentary first. But what I did, I wrote a book proposal and sent it to some publishers. There was a publisher who was interested, which meant I was going to write the book first before doing anything with a documentary. So I wrote the book. And for those of you who are interested in that kind of history, it came out June 15th of 2023. That was, if you're watching it in 2024, that was last year. It's called Memories of a Tuskegee Airman Nurse and Her Military Sisters. It was published by New South Books, which is an imprint of the University of Georgia Press. And so what I've been doing is doing presentations and book signings. And so, the book can be purchased. I've seen it that it's around the world, but at your local bookstore or Amazon or any online book site, or the ugapress.org, and that's the publisher's site. And just so you know, sometimes the publisher, especially in the spring and the fall, they may have a sale on all of their books. So you might be able to get the book for like 40%, 50% off. But I'm just saying. But for those of you who know, I now live in Florida, where Black history is not,
exactly.
It's not walked. It's not. They have to be, diversity, equity, and that is kind of a no-no in this state, especially if you get state funds. However, what I'm finding, I've spoken in Ohio. I've spoken where, there have been a school is using my book in California. They're using it in California because their schools have to make sure that they're telling stories of different people in their communities. So I did a Zoom with them, 25, these are middle and high school students. they're studying in my book. And so, and I was the first author who they brought on to do this. So what I'm saying is that it's important because all of us, we have stories to tell. We need to get with our aunties, our uncles, our grandparents, our mothers and fathers, and find out what was going on. Because as I talked to the other children of Tuskegee Airmen and the nurses, our parents didn't really talk about what was going on. And in my book, I thought about it. Probably it was very painful, or they just didn't think that this was just something they did. And it wasn't until later years that they realized the historical importance of what they've done. They helped open up the doors so that when President Harry Truman, who came in next, and he really wasn't really up, because I've read a book about that situation. In 1948, he desegregated the military. But it was these nurses like these Tuskegee Airmen who opened up the doors, because I always tell people, what would have happened if the nurses had been horrible? If the men had just been messing up on airplanes and all. One thing that I forgot to mention, these nurses were nursing school graduates, because even to be in the Army Nurse Corps, you had to be, and be in the Red Cross, you had to have graduated from nursing school, and they were already registered nurses. So they were coming in prepared. And not all the nurses, like my mother went to, it was a segregated nursing school, which was under a white, the Medical College of Virginia, because they had a black hospital, so they couldn't have white nurses in the black hospital. So they had a nursing school for black women then. So, but I'm saying that to say these women were prepared, they were educated, they had skills. And the men who were the Tuskegee Airmen, to be known as the Tuskegee Airmen, most of them came in, they may have had some college under their belt already. They may have been like 18, 19. They were young, okay? Now, the nurses were all kinds of ages, because some of the nurses were widows. But like my mother, she came from working in nursing school and the hospital at her nursing school into the military. So there are all kinds of stories. There were 28 nurses. In my book, I have something on every one of them.